All right. All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Olga Makarova. I'm a research specialist at the Slavic Reference Service at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign Library. And I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this installment of the Meet the National Libraries series. We started this series several years ago. And one of our main goals was to showcase the amazing work done at the national libraries around the world and make the projects and initiatives at the national libraries a little bit more known and visible to everyone outside of their home countries. And also it's an opportunity for scholars and researchers and librarians and information specialists and everyone who is interested in the work done by the National Library to kind of come together and to discuss current issues and trends, and also an opportunity to see faces behind these resources and projects carried out at the National Libraries. And so I'm very grateful to colleagues and especially Dr. Anna for your work and for your for all the hard work that was behind the scenes for putting this together and for finding time to join us. And we're very thankful for this opportunity to meet with you and to hear from you about your amazing library. And so Dr. Anna Stevanovic will start us off. She will introduce her colleagues and also give an outline for the presentations today. And then at the end, we'll hopefully have time for some Q&A. So Anna, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from the National Library of Serbia. Olga, thank you so much for the introduction and for this invitation. We are honored to be here and to participate in Meet the National Library series. First, I will not talk too much because you will see me from time to time during this meeting. We will actually start with the 15 minutes video with our director, who will talk about the past, the present, and the future of our library and librarianship in Serbia. Before we start, I will just say a couple of words about our director. Vladimir Pištalo has been director of National Library of Serbia since February 2021. He holds PhD from New Hampshire University in history, and his thesis was about multiple identities of Serbian immigrants in America, their Serbian Yugoslavian American identities. He is one of the most eminent contemporary Serbian prose writers. For his work, he received several national book awards. Among them, which is very interesting, was the award for the most borrowed book in Serbian public library system in 2008. His book have been translated into English, German, French, Slovak, Russian, Italian, etc. So we will welcome to the National Library of Serbia. And first we will see our short video, which I will share now. Just a second. Okay, I hope that this will be okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so enjoy.
The National Library of Serbia is older than the Serbian state. It was established in 1832 by Count Miloš Obrenović. At that moment, Serbia was a principality within the Ottoman Empire. The last Turkish soldiers left Serbia in 1867 and it became independent in 1878. So mind you, the library was established in 1832. And it shows you the correspondence which was common in the 19th century between culture and political independence. And even the people who were not that interested necessarily in books, like Count Miloš Obrenović, were savvy enough politically to understand that the guarantee of the Serbian European future is establishing a library. A library started, the kernel of the library was the collection of Grigorije Vozarević. He was a book enthusiast and he was a printer as well. So his small publishing house was actually at the place when the library developed later. It is kind of interesting in itself to trace the path of the library through the map of Belgrade. And it would be an interesting endeavor to guide the tourist, I guess bookish tourists, from one place to another and follow all the destinations in which the library used to exist. It was this beginning in 1832 was at Kralja Petra Street, and actually one of the most elite primary schools in Belgrade is at that place. The architect, if I was not mistaken, of the school is Jelisaveta Načić, one of the first female Serbian architects. What was really important and what made the story serious is that the law has passed at that same time that one copy of every book that is published is should be sent to the library, which is the same principle that we have today, of course, so that the library should own all the books that are published in Serbia. That was the beginning in 1832. Then Grigorije Vozarević donated his own library to the growing collection at that time. That was not surprising because if you think about the Congressional Library in the United States, it also started with the private collections, one of which was Jefferson's collection. If I was not mistaken, it was maybe 3 decades before that. So the library continued operating within the changing realities of the Serbian state, following the independence, growing together with the state and changing these locations in which it was. I remember as kind of interesting the Serbian daily Politika, which is probably the oldest daily in the Balkans, in their house, hosted the library for a while. Then the palace of Captain Misha Anastasievich, which is the seat of Belgrade University, was also the place where the seat of the library was. And then today's city library near Kalimegdan was also one of the houses where the library operated until it actually got that very famous building in Kosančićev Venac. The decision was made after World War I in 1921, and the library actually moved into that house several years later. The decision that the day when it was decided to build that library building was the 6th of April, 1921. Ironically, on the 6th of April, 1941, the library was destroyed. It was one of the most tragic destructions in the Serbian history. If we follow the fate of that same date, on the 6th of April in 1973, the new library, the building in Vračar, which is the library where we currently talk, was built almost like a monument to a library because the first library was never rebuilt. This complete destruction in World War II was one of the biggest destructions of books, culture sites. And usually, if you think about Hitler's bonfires, the destruction of books is always closely related to the destruction of human beings. But this was not the first time that the Serbian national heritage suffered, because in World War I, the building back then, Captain Misha Anastasievich's palace, was shelled a number of times. A number of books were relocated, but thousands of them were lost, some of them to be returned after the war, and some of them just disappeared forever. And I could not remember these figures, but 56 old manuscripts discovered and they were not found after that, and 3,000 books in more than 4,000 volumes. So when we talk about these old manuscripts, and we will come back to that when we talk about the library on Kosančić Venac, this is the most painful part of this story, because these manuscripts from the 12th until the 17th century, of course, could not be replicated. They are just lost forever, and you feel a vertigo of loss and pain when you think about that. The destruction in World War II, when the building in Kosančić Venac was shelled, and allegedly, according to Field Marshal von Leer, by the direct order of Hitler. The idea being to destroy the cultural memory of the people. About 1,400 manuscripts from the Middle Ages were lost. They were just burned in that terrible fire. And in addition to that, over 200 ancient incunables, all cartographic collection, all correspondences of the political and cultural dignitaries of Serbia and Yugoslavia, basically like the likes of Vuk Karadžić, some of the most important figures in the Serbian cultural history, all newspapers and magazines between the 18th and the 20th century, all categories and all inventories, so that we don't even know what we lost. And with the loss of the newspapers, mostly from the 19th century, we lost the ability to reconstruct the everyday life of everyday people in that period. And of course, there were some other libraries, but the most of that was destroyed in Kosančić Venac. So, what is interesting, the library was never rebuilt after the war, and up to this day. And it's interesting to go to Kosančić Venac to see that place where the library used to stand. You still have interesting tiles of the former floor. Roman castrum was at that place before, so if you dig a little further, you're going to find the Roman mosaic. These are kind of the layers of Belgrade, one upon the other. It is actually a great desire of number of people from Belgrade to rebuild that library as the monument, as the memory house with the eternal fire and with the exhibitions. It is kind of should be like a Janus-like house, half of that looking to the past and the trauma of the past, and half of that looking to the future and international cooperation. Meanwhile, in 1973, the house on Vračar was built, which is the current library. And when it was built, the legendary Ministry of Culture of France, André Malraux, sent as a present his manuscript about Picasso, and he sent a famous letter in which he said that the Serbian library, this one, he sees as an expression of the people for which culture and freedom are one. This library is, many people notice that, it is kind of built on a very special place. Vračar is a hill. It is an elevated, you know, in America there was a concept of a city on the hill. This is not exactly a city on the hill, but it is a shrine on the hill. Shrine dedicated to the books, and this is the place that light hits first in the morning and where light lingers the longest during the day. This really is a privileged place of light, metaphorically speaking, but also literally speaking. And a number of visitors noticed that the building is more beautiful from the inside than from the outside. And in that way, it symbolizes a cultural situation, should I say, in which the inner life is more important than the external adornments. When I became a director of the National Library of Serbia, I set for myself a couple of simple tasks. One of them is, of course, to represent the libraries of Serbia, because we are kind of an umbrella library to the other libraries, from the big ones to the smallest ones. And we see ourselves as the part of the system. And I have visited a number of libraries in Serbia, including some in the villages. And I must say that I always like to meet the librarians, and I think that librarians deserve to be respected. If somebody deserves to be respected in the fabric of the society, it is the librarians. And I always try to first give them that respect myself, and second, to advocate their work in the society. Second, the Serbian National Library is also a cultural crossroad. In a way, a big international cultural center. Especially this year, we established House of Books. This is the like Maison de Livre. You have institutions like that around the world, and they work on cultural cooperation. They enhance the translations both from Serbian into other languages and from other languages into Serbian. And also, library is not just a library. For example, IFLA, International Library Association, has kind of 50 think tanks under different names that are doing all kind of tasks and analyzing all kinds of situations which are not just, strictly speaking, about collecting books. It is about everything that books reflect, and the books reflect the society and the world. So library is always a powerful symbol. So this year we put solar panels, at, it was maybe a month ago, at the roof of our library. First, I was talking about that connection between light and realization, about Vračar Plateau, where the library is built, being a place of light. So there is a lot of sun, and we are going to settle a part of our problems with electricity by setting these solar panels. We started doing that before the energetic crisis became so prominent. And now we kind of reap the benefits of our foresight. But it is not only that. I have lived in the United States a number of years, and I remember what a powerful message, what a powerful symbol were solar panels on the White House, and especially when they were taken down. When they were taken down, a number of people who lived in America, and including me, were taken aback. And of course, we are not a White House. We are a National Library of Serbia. But what we do gives a powerful message to other institutions and to other people. And when we did it, a number of the directors of the other institutions were asking me actually who did it, how was it, how much money did it take to do that. And that's exactly the kind of example that we wanted to set. And in addition to that, the purity of energy is always a cultural phenomenon.
Okay. I hope you enjoyed our little video. I will have to say that the video was created by our colleague Nikola Vukanovic, who also designed PowerPoint presentations. Before we start with the presentations, I would just like to add that National Library of Serbia cooperates with more than 250 national, university and academic libraries with more than 80 Slavic centers, about 50 Serbian libraries from all over the world, and 3 cultural information centers of the Republic of Serbia. Through this cooperation, 2 very important tasks are accomplished. Through sharing books and serials from Serbia, we can build collections of Serbian publications in libraries all over the world as means of representing culture, science, history, literature, and art. At the same time, through this cooperation, we are gathering publications from Serbian authors published abroad. This exchange is cultural mission of National Library of Serbia, and it enables open information flow between Serbia and the rest of the world. And now we will start with our presentations, and I will start sharing my screen again, just to be sure that I put this, okay, you see my screen, great. Okay, so this is first of 3 presentations that we have. We will start with the Virtual Library of Serbia and catalogs of the National Library of Serbia. Authors of these presentations are our colleagues Angelina Grujić, head of the Center for Shared Cataloging of Republic of Serbia, and Ana Savić, head of Department for Monographics, Catalogization and in Publication and ISBN. Announced presenter, who is on the poster, Ljubica Ljubišić, was not able to join us, and I hope I will be her substitute, that I will be up to the task. So we will start with the core of every library, and that is the catalog. Virtual Library of Serbia is a project dating back to 2001 with the goal to connect the national, public, university, and special libraries in Serbia into a shared cataloging system that would allow, first, electronic access to information about library holdings and e-documents, then automation and standardization of library operation, and improved and standardized education of librarians in the system. The National Library of Serbia and University Library Stevanovic Marković were in charge of the project, establishment of the Virtual Library of Serbia, and construction of a cooperative network for higher education libraries in Serbia. In 2003, the Central Shared Catalog of the Republic of Serbia was established through integration of electronic catalogs of the 4 leading Serbian libraries with more than 1.3 million bibliographic records. I will now explain why it is in the 2001 and 2003. It is the beginning of the 21st century. For some of you, it's maybe too late, but for us it wasn't, because before that, back in the most of the 20th century, we were part of a bigger system. We were part of a federation, and we had to start all over again for the second time. And the libraries that I've mentioned were libraries, University Library Stevanovic Marković, Matica Srpska Library from Novi Sad, and UBIN, which was Yugoslav Bibliographic and Information Institute that ceased to exist in 2004. And you will see through this presentation that I will mention Matica Srpska Library and University Library a couple more times. COBIS represents an organizational model of joining libraries into a national library information system with shared cataloging, the COBIP shared catalog, and local catalogs of participating libraries at the Honor Authority database. The COBIS platform was developed by the Institute of Information Science Maribor from Slovenia, who was in charge of development of software and organizational solutions for similar projects in former Yugoslavia in early 90s. As you probably know, shared catalog includes a number of local electronic catalogs and one central shared catalog. Once a bibliographic record is made in local database, at the same time it is transmitted to the shared catalog, and it is available for download to all local catalogs of all libraries that own a copy of the document. Connecting the libraries in Serbia into a single information system on the COBIS platform allowed shared cataloging and access to foreign catalogs, as well as automation of library operations pertaining to holdings, loan, and reporting management. This also opened access to full text databases, data on libraries in the system, and the service for production of bibliographies of scientific researchers. Operation of the libraries and education of the librarians in the system were improved and standardized. Department from the National Library of Serbia dealing with this is called Center for Shared Cataloging of the Republic of Serbia, or CUK, how we call it. And the tasks are revision of the shared catalog, standardized trainings and education for the work in the system of shared cataloging, planning development of the system, and technical maintenance of the network. COBIS is Cooperative Online Bibliographic System and Services of the Republic of Serbia, and it has in its networks 255 libraries. The members of the shared cataloging system are 2 national libraries. Don't be confused. Matica Srpska Library is library who also works as a national library. 92 faculty university libraries, 105 public libraries, 47 special libraries, libraries from different institutions, like institutions from culture, science, economy, cultural heritage, and others. Unfortunately, only 10 school libraries with overall 1,030 catalogers. I am sorry, I have a lot of numbers in my presentation, and I hope that I will get all them as it should be. COBIS is part of a wider network, COBISnet, with 8 regional countries participating with 1,453 libraries. In recent years, over 70% of the records in local catalogs of these libraries have been downloaded either from a shared catalog and COBISnet network or from the global databases like LC, OCLC, and ISSN. You can see graphically and with percentages what are the libraries in the system. COBIS, or Central Shared Catalog, currently has about 3,786,000 records. I hope that I got this number right. The total number of bibliographic records in local databases is around 13 million. The number of bibliographic records in the local catalog of National Library of Serbia is over 1.5 million. And this is an illustration, what you can see of COBIS Plus web application. And with that, we are going to the second part of this presentation about catalogs of the National Library of Serbia. COBIS Plus web application provides access to the local electronic catalog of the National Library of Serbia. It contains bibliographic records for different types of library materials like books, non-book materials, serials, integrating resources, articles, and other component parts. And for the purposes of managing bibliographies are also for performed works. A close connection between local catalogs of individual libraries and the union catalog is a characteristic feature of shared cataloging. To exchange data in the COBIS system, 2 formats are used, both based on the Unimart format, as you can see on the presentation. The local catalog additionally contains uniformly structured copy-specific holding data. Bibliographic records are made in accordance with the International Standard Bibliographic Description, of course, ISBD, unique cataloging principles, the Universal Decimal Classification System, rules for subject classification, communication format for machine-readable cataloging, and the corresponding national regulations on records and processing library and information sources, and all those publications with all those informations and rules are illustrated in this slide. National Library of Serbia has been using UDC as a content markup tool for decades. So this is a very successful story about a project that started at the end of 2018 with participation of over 50 librarians from all over Serbia, from National Library of Serbia, Matica Srpska Library from Novi Sad, and University Library from Svetozar Marković from Belgrade. We managed to, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit emotional because I was in charge of this project. We managed to translate the whole system in 1 year, and we started at the end of 2018, and by the end of 2019 the system was already translated and ready to use. The platform contains the latest version of UDC master reference file, and it is online, free of charge for all librarians in Serbia. And the thing is that this is the first online platform with a classification scheme in the Cyrillic script, which means that it took a lot of work to make it look like it is. And it proved very useful during COVID, when we all were working from home and we were able to work and use this platform. Other very successful project is Honor database. The implementation of authority control in the shared cataloging system in Serbia was a significant step towards linking data and providing access to data, enriching the quality of national library information system and strengthening partnership with similar international systems. The realization of this project was started in collaboration with, again, Matica Srpska Library from Novi Sad and the University Library Svetozar Marković, with the participation of all libraries in Serbia who maintain and develop their catalogs under the COBIS platform. The Institute of Information Sciences from Maribor, Slovenia, was responsible for the development and organizational solution and software. Since our catalog is Cyrillic, use Cyrillic script, we have parallel headings. That is something that is completely unusual, and we have examples that illustrate the parallel headings. Parallel headings formed for Serbian authors consist of the Cyrillic and the Latin form of the personal name. For those authors whose work is created in a language other than Serbian and etymological forms of their names are written in Cyrillic or Latin other than Serbian alphabet, parallel headings make etymological form of the Cyrillic and transliterate it into Latin forms. If we have a Serbian author will have one heading in Cyrillic script and the other in Latin script. If we have an author that is not Serbian, for example, we have here William Shakespeare, he will have one heading in Cyrillic script, of course, in Serbian language, and the other in etymology, original language, in English language. If the author is German, it will be in German language. And if the author is originally from a language that use Cyrillic script, and that is not Serbian, like Russian, Bulgarian, Macedonian, then one heading is in the original, in their own language, and the other one is just the form of the name in Latin script. As the next slide shows authority records in two different formats that can be seen in our databases. Today, collections of National Library of Serbia are available through e-catalog. It was preceded by various stages of catalog development. We started with a list of the materials in the 19th century in 1845, when the National Library had 1,421 items, and we entered the 20th century, with 3 author card catalogs, alphabetical catalogs. After the Second World War, National Library of Serbia started the project of printing catalogs. National Library of Serbia began publication of the printed catalog of books in the languages of the Yugoslav peoples from 1868 to 1972 in 1975 and ended in 1989. The catalog consists of 14 volumes totaling over 1,300 pages. This catalog includes about 300,000 titles of monographic publications that the National Library of Serbia has in its holdings. Digital copies of this catalog are searchable on our website. And the thing is, what I said once more, we had to start all over again with our catalogs a couple of times. And during the Second World War, as you heard, on April the 6th, during the bombing of Belgrade, the complete library was burned to the ground. We lost the building and everything that was in the building, and that means that we also lost a catalog, a librarian catalog. Everything was destroyed, so we had to start all over again. After the Second World War, the formation of card catalog started again. Author catalog, the subject catalog, and the specialized catalog according to the UDC were developed, as you can see in the slide. Author catalog in 1947, followed by the subject catalog the next year. In 1974, the specialized catalog was formed according to the UDC. In 1976, the library adopted new cataloging regulation and switched to the International Standards of Bibliographic Description, the ISBD, and preparations for e-catalog were made then. And the e-electronic catalog of the National Library of Serbia was established in 1989. And I will say only one, we have only one slide for this presentation about the electronic catalog of manuscripts, and I will finish with this catalog, and archival materials of the National Library of Serbia that we call ATOM. That is one of the few successful examples of a digital online catalog among cultural heritage institutions in Serbia. The application was born from the desire of the International Council on Archives to create an application that would enable the availability of archival funds in an online environment. The process of translating and adapting the ATOM application for the needs of the National Library of Serbia began in 2015. Further development of this application enabled online access to information about the fund of younger literary manuscripts and archives. The wide range of information about the material significantly facilitates the use of the library for scientific and research purposes. And that was a very short, I can say, introduction or story about catalogs of National Library of Serbia. And now I will stop sharing my screen, and I am very happy to announce our next presenter and next presentation. Presentation authors are Maša Miloradović, Head of Special Collections Department, Željko Mladićević, Head of Department of Protection, Conservation and Restoration, and Vladan Trijić, who is here with us, who is going to present their presentation. Vladan is head of the Archeography department. He holds a PhD from Belgrade University in medieval history, and he's going to introduce you with special collections of National Library of Serbia, the work of the departments that keep them, and the efforts to protect cultural heritage, not only inside the library, but also outside the library. So, Vlada, floor is yours.
Okay. Okay, I hope you can hear me now. Okay, sorry for these technical problems. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever suits you best. So in the next 20 or 25 minutes, we'll be talking about two departments of NLS that hold special collections, one that takes care of their well-being, and at the end, just a little something about contribution of NLS to the preservation of Serbian cultural heritage abroad. So the first one is the Department of Special Collections, which was founded in 1947. It collects, preserves, and presents books and non-book library material of specific types selected for their cultural, historical, museological, or scientific value. There is a detailed guide through the special collections. You can see it on the left side of the slide, and down is the link to it. Most of the collections can be searched through the online Union Catalog service, but manuscripts and archival documents, as you have already heard, are searchable through electronic catalog Ekran, which is actually a customized open source application of ATOM. One of the oldest and most important collections of the National Library of Serbia is, of course, the old rare and miniature book collection. It includes more than 6,000 titles in around 15,000 copies. As we will see later, manuscripts, incunabule, and Serbian books printed up until 1638 are kept in the Archeography department. The upper limit for all Serbian books is 1867, the year of linguistic reform by Vučaj. For books in other languages, the upper year is 1800 or even later, in accordance with the rules that apply to individual languages. The collection of manuscripts and archival documents includes primarily literary legacies of prominent Serbian authors, but also other written material important for history, ethnography, politics, science, etc. And here on the slide, you can see one such document that is the letter of Nikola Tesla to our famous writer and Dr. Jovan Jovanović Zmaj. This collection focuses not only on written evidence of the past, but also on contemporary original manuscripts. A rich cartographic collection of more than 30,000 items is focused mostly on the cartographic presentation of Serbia and the Balkans, and it has several very rare and valuable maps and atlases which originate from as early as the 16th century. Collection of music manuscripts, printed music, audio and audiovisual materials covers the history of both composing and performing music. For the last decade, the intense digitization of the oldest sound records, a rich collection of 78 RPM gramophone records, was underway. The job involved not only a conversion to digital format, but also a thorough restoration of the recordings. Art and prints collection includes rare and valuable engravings and prints from the 16th to 20th century. For example, the legacy of drawings of the Russian architect Nikolai Krasnov, sketches by painter Ljubomir Ivanović, nearly 200 copper engravings from Hilandar Monastery, drawings and illustrations by Ljubica Sokić and Bosiljka Kićevac, caricatures by Alexander Klas, etc. The art collection is comprised of over 230 paintings and sculptures by most prominent contemporary Serbian artists, and here you can see the portrait of Miloš Crnjanski by Sava Šumanović. The most valuable part of the collection of photo documents represents Serbian photography of the 19th century, but also bequests of two prominent contemporary photographers, Branibor Debeljković and Ivo Eterović. There is also an abundant collection of postcards. A specific part of the special collections is a collection of bequeathed libraries by prominent Serbian writers, historians, and ethnographers, such as Miloš Crnjanski, Tihomir Đorđević, Janković sisters, Ljubomir Micić, etc. And you can see some of them here on the photos. They are comprised of books, manuscripts, photographs, personal documents, and various ephemera. Here you can see also the list of some of the other special collections. Among them is my personal favorite, the collection of comic books. And here are some of the databases, portals, etc. that special collections are represented in, but we won't stick here much because that is something that you will hear more in our third presentation. So now onto my own archaeography department. The very existence of this department represents one of the specificities of National Library of Serbia. It's been founded in 1961 by Vladimir as the Department for the Description and Registration of Slavic Manuscripts. That means, as the name suggests, that it had exclusively parent assignments. It was framed as an institute for manuscripts with a long-term research project consisting in continuous work on the multidisciplinary description of all Cyrillic manuscripts in Yugoslavia, now in Serbia, of course, and of South Slavic, now Serbian manuscripts abroad, which is very important because the most of them are actually abroad. In the course of time, the tasks have, of course, multiplied. So during the work on the descriptions, copies of watermarks, ornamentation, and bindings have been made by hand, thus creating new derived collections. Also, collection of microfilms grew bigger and bigger very fast. Printed books in Serbian Church Slavonic have been included into the corpus of descriptions. Employees have been encouraged to continue research in their specific fields, and the department took part in several international and domestic projects in cooperation. Maybe the most important move in terms of status of the department, the one that actually turned it into one of more or less regular departments of National Library of Serbia, was the transfer of two newly formed collections of originals from the Department of Special Collections, which entailed work with users. Here you can see Ivo Andrić, our famous writer, in visit to the Archeography department, and on the right is his host here, Dmitry Bogdanovic. So Archeography department takes care of two collections of originals, which we'll introduce later in more detail. Then of the collections of handmade copies and pictures, diverse documentary material, and an archaeographic reference library. The collection of watermarks with over 34,000 copies and the collection of microfilms with around 5,700 items are maybe the richest respective collections in this part of Europe. On microfilms, we have pictures of manuscripts that belong to public institutions and institutions of Serbian Orthodox Church in Belgrade and other places in Serbia, then from several cities of former Yugoslavia, but also further from Russia to Ireland and from France to Mount Athos and Mount Sinai. Taking into account all the foregoing, it's not hard to understand why Archeography department is a starting point for most researchers of Slavic manuscripts and early printed books in Serbia, but also for many foreign Slavists. Manuscript collection of the Old National Library, destroyed in German bombing of Belgrade in 1941, counted around 1,400 items. From that fateful event until today, 322 manuscripts, codices, and fragments of rich, diverse content have been gathered. They mostly date from 13th to 17th century, but there are also later ones from 18th and 19th century that follow the traditions of medieval literacy. These mainly Cyrillic monuments are written in one of the variants of Old Church Slavonic, mostly in Serbian Church Slavonic, which is a Serbian literary language of Middle Ages, although there are also those who lean toward the vernacular. Hence the paramount importance of the collection for Slavic studies. Only a couple of manuscripts are in other languages, mostly Greek and Latin. The detailed archaeographic description of 180 manuscripts is published in 1986, while the description of newly acquired books and fragments is underway. We've chosen to present to you 3 books from the collection. The first one, Belgrade Prophetologion, or Beogradski parimenik, is the oldest codex of NLS. I said codex, we'll hear later why. And it dates from the first quarter of the 13th century. Its script and overall appearance make it one of the finest Serbian manuscripts of all times. Unfortunately, it is heavily damaged, as you can see from this photograph. This remain of a codex, once at least double in size, have only a couple of folios left to its fully preserved text. The book contains paremie or parimie, excerpts mostly from the Old Testament, read on the eve of more important feasts, by which the feast itself is announced or interpreted. It is the oldest and most important preserved Serbian transcript of Prophetologion, and its closeness to Cyril-Methodian version of the text make it significant for the whole Slavistic community. In terms of language, it represents a veritable treasure trove of different stages of centuries-long historical development of Serbian Church Slavonic. Also, the Belgrade Prophetologion is an example of a manuscript that has been fully processed. Its features became topics of several scientific articles, and it got full archaeographic description. Then the text was critically published in an exemplary manner, I have to say. And finally, the book got its phototype edition, and on the same occasion in 2019, it was conservated again, a century after the first intervention. Bratkov Mine, the Bratkov Mineon, is a parchment convolute that consists of 4 parts inscribed in 3 different periods by 5 scribes. It contains services to saints and feasts, that is, hymnographic liturgical text for the whole year. The Bratkov Mineon is multiple significant. Different Slavic translations and different redactions of the text are represented in it. It has peculiar language traits, and it is a vast literary reservoir, not only of translated works, but also of the original Serbian and Slavic creativity. That is why it has been in the focus of scientific research, probably more often than any other manuscript from our collection. The manuscript of 4 Gospels for liturgical use from the Dovolja monastery was written in the second quarter of the 16th century. The beginning of each Gospel is decorated with an elaborate headpiece and initial filled with golden ink, heavily damaged by water, as you can see. But the specific value of this codex is rather that each of the 4 Gospels is preceded by a parchment folio with a miniature representing the respective evangelists, originally from some much older Byzantine manuscript. Judging by their iconography and style, they belong to the period of Macedonian Renaissance, that is to the end of the 10th or the first half of the 11th century. Thus, these 4 leaves are actually the oldest bits of the written heritage kept in NLS. The other archeographic collection of originals, collection of early printed books, consists of 102 books and 4 fragments. Of these, 96 belong to the first period of Serbian printing in Serbian Church Slavonic language that lasted from 1494 to 1638. The most precious are the only Cyrillic incunabulae printed in South Slavic lands, thanks to Đurađ Crnojević, ruler of Zeta, today's Montenegro. But the most common are the books printed in Venice, especially by Božidar and Vicenzo Vuković. There are also books printed across Serbian ethnic space within the Ottoman Empire, in Goražde, Mileševa, Gračanica, Belgrade, etc. But the oldest book in the collection is actually Tractatus Quidam de Turcis, printed by Konrad Zening in Nuremberg in 1481. The metadata about our 2 collections of originals can be found in the online catalog of NLS, and they are also represented in digital NLS and some other portals. But we still don't have a database which would satisfy the needs of a detailed archeographic description in accord with our own methodology. So to share results of our work, we are still dominantly oriented towards print. For decades now, Archeography department publishes inventories, catalogs, full descriptions, paleographic albums, albums of watermarks, phototype editions, monographs, miscellaneous, exhibition catalogs, etc. Since 1979, we also publish archeographic papers, the only scientific journal in this part of Europe specialized for the archeography and results of related disciplines based on the research of manuscripts and early printed books. And about physical well-being of the mentioned special collections, but also the general fund of NLS, I have to say delicately cares Department of Protection, Conservation and Restoration. It started as a paper conservation lab in 1949 in the Institute for the Protection of Cultural Monuments of Serbia in order to protect manuscripts, all printed books, charters and other written material with qualities of cultural goods. But it was only in the new building of NLS that dedicated space for such work was formed. This space was thoroughly reconstructed in 2008. Today, Department of Protection, Conservation and Restoration of NLS has the status of central laboratory for the conservation of parchment and paper in Serbia, which means that it performs protection activities concerning not only old and rare books of NLS, but of other domestic owners as well. Here you can see some photographs from the laboratory itself. The laboratory is on 350 square meters, and it has different spaces, as you can see here on the list. I don't have to read this list, I think. And now we'll see some of the examples of the performed conservation process. On the left is Studenica Tetraevangelium from the monastery of Studenica from the first half of the 16th century. And on the right, the book you all already know, the Belgrade Prophetologian. And some other types of material, drawings, documents, etc. Department of Conservation is also invested in not only in curative conservation, but also in scientific research. That is why NLS has agreements of cooperation with a number of scientific institutions, of which the most important is concluded with the Faculty of Biology of Belgrade University. Besides the physical protection, NLS is very much invested in legal protection of cultural goods. I will only state two facts. That our library, in fact, prepared the text of several effective laws and bylaws on issues connected with library practices, and that it runs Central National Registry of categorized old and rare books. Now, in the same spirit of the protection of cultural heritage, we'll take a short walk outside of NLS. Namely, history of Serbian people is marked with natural and forced migrations. So the considerable part of its heritage is located abroad. NLS gave tremendous contribution to processing and physical preservation of the book part of that heritage. This refers to, among others, 3 large centers of Serbian culture: Sant Andrej in Hungary, Sant Andrea, Trieste in Italy, and Hilandar Monastery on Mount Athos in Greece. Hilandar is often called heart outside of the body because of the constant and deep spiritual and cultural impact on Serbian people and wider Orthodox community for more than 8 centuries. NLS has the access to its formidable book fund since 1971, but with shorter or longer interruptions. In the specific circumstances of isolated life in the only monastic republic in the world, our employees managed to equip library premises to form collections, process them, and present them to the world. They've published catalogs of Cyrillic manuscript and early printed book collections, albums of watermarks, catalogs of modern books in Serbian, Bulgarian, and Russian. Also, a large number of manuscripts, old printed books, charters, graphics, photographs, modern publications, and other material on parchment or paper has been conserved. That work continues today. And here is just one fruit of that work. Once heavily damaged Meneon for December from the end of the 13th century, which you can see on the left. You can see the state it was in before, and on the right after the conservation. And on the final slide, after binding. I dare to say that us, the ones involved with this work, consider it to be a pure privilege for many reasons that I won't list here. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Vladan, for this very interesting presentation. And we have one more presentation. Authors of the next presentations are Slađana Stojaković, Head of Department for User Information Services, then Tatjana Timotijević, Head of the Department for Scientific Information, and Tamara Butigan Vučaj. She will be the presenter. She is the Head of Digital Library Department and coordinator of several international projects, and she will talk about digital collections and projects, Serbian Library Consortium for Coordinated Acquisition of Scientific Information, and user information services. Tamara.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Olga. Hello, everyone. I have a challenging task to present 3 in 1, and I will do my best to do so. I see myself like this guy. Yourself. Sorry? Am I? No, I'm not muted, or yes? Do you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Ah, sorry. Okay, so let's go again. National Library of Serbia was a national pioneer in digitization of cultural heritage. So our first digital collection dates back to 2004, actually, and it was the Serbian Children's Digital Library, inspired indeed by the international project of the similar title, International Children's Digital Library, coordinated by the University of Maryland in US. Next steps in digitization were made within the European Library, and then after that with Europeana, which was our real digital guru in many fields. Our digital collections fit to Europeana standards in metadata and content quality. And also we applied its good practice in the copyright field and also in promoting digital content through editorials, meaning blogs, galleries, and exhibitions. And from the other hand, we must follow Serbian law and internal rules for using library collections. So this is also implemented in our digital library. The model for digital library itself was the one from the National and University Library of Slovenia. We have 8 thematic collections, mostly inspired by the European project, as we will see. And last but definitely not least, it is that we are about to open data for the whole digital library and make them available for use and reuse through the National Open Data Portal. This page is illustrated by our capital city, Belgrade, and it looked gorgeous 1 century ago when these postcards were published. Project Embark was our first digitization project. It was coordinated by the Czech National Library with the aim to include a number of Serbian and Bulgarian medieval manuscripts into Manuscriptorium, Czech Digital Library of Written Cultural Heritage. 22 full Serbian manuscripts are available both in Manuscriptorium and Europeana. And in this project, we touched for the first time a bit of digital humanities by creating TI XML for one of the manuscripts. This slide is illustrated by a detail from Dovoljsko Četvorje Evangelje that Vladan also used. It is dated to the end of 10th and early 11th century. The biggest digitization project we ever had was 4 years project launched for the centenary of the Great War, Europeana Collections 1914-1918. We made the first thematic collection and the portal dedicated to the Great War, providing access to 400,000 of library units from the First World War. This collection is also available in Europeana, and the newspaper collection is available as fully searchable at the portal Pretraživa of the University Library in Belgrade. The project included also an exhibition, Artists and the Great War. The slide illustration is a drawing of Xavier Saget. This is Serbia. It is titled Serbia, Revenge or Death. It is presenting a woman. Serbia is presented as a woman in ragged green pants and jacket, holding a dagger over her hand and carrying a rifle. That's how Serbia was seen back then. The CSEE project was a small regional project, digitization project. For this one, we prepared 3 collections: early Serbian photography, postcards of Belgrade, and 1 art collection drawings by Serbian painter, printmaker, and draughtsman Vladimir Ivanovic. I think he was already mentioned in Vlada's slides. The slide is illustrated by Ljubomir's drawing of Old Paris made in 1943. And then it comes a series of 3 projects with Europeana. The first one was Rise of Literacy, where Europeana, along with 12 cultural institutions from 10 European countries, presented the advancement of literacy at the old continent between the 4th and 20th century. As a project partner, the National Library of Serbia celebrated the Serbian language with a dozen of digital collections, and the list of collections is on the slide. And this slide is illustrated by the handwritten work titled Thoughts by the first Serbian educated philosopher, Božidar Knežević. 7 editorials, blogs, galleries, and exhibitions were following these collections, both on Europeana and on the NLS editorials web pages. In this project, we produced the first OCR PDFs for textual digital objects and added rights metadata for the first time in Digital Library. This slide is illustrated by the photo from Zenit, Yugoslav Avant-Garde Review magazine. And avant-garde art in Yugoslavia followed the European art tendencies. It was characterized by breaking all kinds of boundaries, discovering and combining new media and the aesthetic reevaluation of the world. Experiments with the language and writing are particularly interesting as avant-garde art influenced the future advertisement. Magazines became the main carriers of avant-garde ideas and creative energy, and Zenit itself is an excellent example. To the next project, Migration in the Arts and Sciences, 6 partner cultural institutions from 6 European countries alongside Europeana presented documents testifying to the movement of people to, from, and within Europe. The National Library of Serbia, as a project partner, presented 3 different migration stories from our territory through 3 digital collections: Jewish periodicals, the Roma Journey, and the collection about Miloš Crnjanski, Serbian writer and a diplomat. This project brought us the first storytelling session, Migration Collection Days. In 2 days, we collected 17 stories and learned how to do the collection days in the future. Some of these stories are presented in this slide. Europeana Common Culture was the next project with participation of 23 aggregators all around Europe with the aim to set up the common aggregation landscape. But also several digital collections were made. The industrial heritage of the Bor mine in eastern Serbia, the Sokol movement, and the album of the Jewish family Kalev. The Sokol movement was founded in Prague, in today Czech Republic, by Miroslav Tirš in the second half of the 19th century. But it quickly gained momentum, spreading across all Slavic countries as a pan-Slavic movement to strengthen the national identity through physical exercise and aspirations to attain the Hellenic ideal of physical and spiritual unity. It was among the first movements that supported religious tolerance as well as gender equality. The name Sokol, or falcon in English, was adopted from the national poetry as a symbol of heroism and nobility. On this photo, Sokols made a kind of body installation for the Yugoslav Queen Maria in 1922 in Belgrade. Danube Connecting Europe was the small project funded by the Erland Kolding Nielsen Fund of the CNL, meaning Conference of the European National Librarians, meaning directors. Austrian National Library won this grant and gathered all 10 national libraries from Danube countries in collecting digital objects about Danube. The National Library of Serbia produced the collection A View of the Danube River with maps and graphic arts. And Anna. Our Anna wrote a blog on the Danube fortresses in Serbia. And this is one graphic on the slide illustrating this project. And yet another small project funded by the same organization, by the SEML, but from the other fund, Hidden Stories Fund, in 2021. National Library of Serbia won this grant for a trailblazer attempt by one Serbian cultural institution to listen to record, digitize, and preserve the experience of women during the pandemic crisis. 3 collections have been made: stories, web archive collection, and series of lectures. Stories of women showed that their fight has not been limited to the virus. They have also been fighting for health, for survival, and the well-being of their families. They have been innovative, creative, and dedicated. The web archive collection is a selection of content from different media, daily newspapers, weeklies, magazines, blogs, and so on. The links are in Serbian, but the topics they deal with cross the borders of the country, pointing to the fact that women all over the globe have faced similar issues in this altered everyday life. And video lectures made available as part of the project are the result of an idea to hear the voice of experts on the topic from various perspectives. Through sharing their own experiences, in addition to presenting research pointing to the fact that women have been faced with many extra burdens and difficulties on top of the already existing ones. All 3 collections are available online at the URL address on the slide. And this project was presented at the IFLA poster session in Dublin last year, and also at Taiwan Reading Festival organized by the National Library of Taiwan. And our ongoing digitization project is creation of the collection of Jewish periodicals from the GLAM sector in Serbia, in partnership with the National Library of Israel. Our goal is to produce around 40,000 pages from more than 60 titles. These titles are from the wider area of ex-Yugoslavia, not only Serbia, and the material and the digital content will be published on our digital library, but also at the National Library of Israel Jewish Press Portal and at Europeana too. This illustration is the cover page of serial publication Omanut from 1936. And last but not least, I wanted to close this part of presentation with a few words about the National Library of Serbia in Europeana ecosystem. National Library of Serbia is an accredited aggregator for Europeana since 2018. And a member of the Europeana Aggregator Forum. That means that National Library of Serbia is capable to gather metadata from the GLAM sector institutions and process all the data to Europeana. We already published more than 52,000 digital objects and 17 editorials, and 4 of us are members of Europeana Network Association. But the new future is beginning for Europeana. It is the common European data space for cultural heritage. This is the new flagship initiative of the European Commission in order to accelerate the digital transformation of Europe's cultural sector based on the existing functionalities and services of the Europeana digital service infrastructure. We do believe that the common data space will open its door for non-e-contributors like the National Library of Serbia. And now we are about to change the topic, these children that we consider as the future of the National Library of Serbia will introduce us to the next topic. This is COPSON, which is an acronym, stands for Serbian Library Consortia for Coordinated Acquisition of Scientific Information. This is actually one of the departments in the National Library of Serbia, which is also the statewide coordinator of the above mentioned consortia. This consortium is established in 2001, and their members, its members are all scientific libraries founded by the Republic of Serbia. Among the main goals, I would highlight maybe the transition from paper to electronic editions, having in mind that it started in 2001, and of course the promotion of the national scientific publishing production. The activities of Department of the Scientific Information is a whole list. The whole list is on the slide. I will maybe highlight the budget planning and funding, which is done by the Ministry of Science, where is also decision makers about which publisher to subscribe to Serbian libraries. Also the negotiations with publishers, tender procedures, which could be pretty tricky, different reportings, maintaining of the COPSON webpage, a lot of updatings, the support for customers, and in implementing and maintaining different services. Also, the COPSON, or the Department for Scientific Information, is a member of IFO, which provides some benefits for certain databases. And this is the COPSON webpage, where search always starts. This is the place where the users could search and download scientific articles, books, and everything else. This is where the EBSCO Discovery Service was implemented for federated search for all available resources. And just a short update of what we had back in 1222. We had subscription to more than 35,000 e-journals and to more than 180,000 e-books. Also, the usage statistic we are very proud about is that we have 3.3 million page visits per year, and also around 2 million downloaded articles or book chapters per year. Next slide is talking about us in the Web of Science. It is an online bibliography implemented in 2005 with the main goal to promote Serbian researchers. It collects all articles published by Serbian authors and referred in Web of Science from 2000 to 2022. We have records for more than 117,000 articles, equipped with a lot of useful links. And the next slide is about DOI Serbia repository. This is the open access repository of Serbian scientific journals. It has been implemented the same year in 2005 and covers 57 active journals. And the archive, also the archive of full text articles from 2002 until today. Repository numbers more than 51,500 articles assigned with DOI numbers. We deposit data from our repository to various other repositories and platforms like Directory of Open Access Journals, Europeana, Crossref, EBSCO, and so on. And this photo from the user space of the National Library of Serbia introduces us to user information services here in the National Library. This photo is illustrating user registration desk and the crowd of people who want to register themselves. The National Library of Serbia is fully open and oriented to all categories of users in fulfilling the important role of providing comprehensive access to numerous sources of knowledge, information, ideas, and opinions. After the huge reconstruction of the user space of the National Library of Serbia, which was completed in 2011, we offer 13 different reading rooms with 600 reading seats to our users. This is central reading room. We see the picture of the central reading room, periodicals reading room, reference collection reading room, electronic reading room, science reading room, multimedia reading room, library and information science reading room for the blind and visually impaired, law and related sciences reading room, special collections reading room, music reading room, cartography reading room, which photo is here on the slide, and at least archeography reading room. The number of members and circulation of users. We are proud of 13,000 members registered each year in the National Library of Serbia, and an average of 600 users visiting the library during one day. During the pandemic crisis, the library accommodated to the new situation and managed to respond to all challenges of that time. The services provided by the National Library of Serbia, the whole list is on the slide. I would maybe remind on interlibrary loan services for libraries in the country and abroad, and a series of trainings for users, especially for users and patrons with reading difficulties and with visually impaired people or people with complete loss of sight. And also our information librarians are guided by the famous quotes of Neil Gaiman that Google can give you 100,000 answers, but the librarian can give you the right one. So they offer both levels of assistance, lower and higher level, just to underline the high level of assistance in searching for extensive literature on a specific topic or information retrieval from different sources. And last slide will introduce us in 3 collections in open access. It is reference collection at the first place, where members can use it independently or with the librarian help. This is the right choice for members who use a large number of manuals in their work or need the professional help of information librarians. The second collection in open access is in the special reading room. It is the collection of literature in the area of law and related sciences. And the third one is the collection of literature in the area of library and information sciences. All the contacts are on the slide, and the illustration of this slide is a beautiful picture of musical program in the National Library of Serbia. This is all we had. Thank you for your attention, and I also invite you to visit all our web pages we showed today, and to also visit our Facebook page. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara, and that's all that we have for you today. This is our last presentation, and we hope that now with this, let's say, insights, you have a little better understanding of how we function, how we work, and what the National Library of Serbia actually is.
Yes, for sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. It was very informative, and we learned, I learned a great deal, and I think that the questions I had, they were all answered. But let's see if we have any questions from our audience. So you can either type it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then unmute and ask your question.
While we wait, we would like to thank all our colleagues for writing comments in the chat. So thank you for listening. Thank you for staying till the end. This is topics were various, so some of you maybe were a little bit bored. For someone it was not interesting, but we did our best. So I hope that we managed to cover. It's very hard to cover all the areas, so we were trying to pick the most important or the most interesting one, but we couldn't left out the catalog or some user services and things. What is the core of every library? So that is something that we tried to show you.
Okay, I think there's one question I see in the chat. What resources do you have for Americans looking for their family history and connections?
Okay, I would like to ask any of our colleagues from National Library of Serbia who are able to answer these questions and are on Zoom. Because we are, I don't think that we are, I don't know. I don't work with it. I work in catalogs, so I don't know if we have anyone from the library who is on Zoom right now too. If not, we will answer the question a little bit later. No, nobody from our colleagues from the other departments. So I think that we will.
Anna, I think that, can I?
Yes, of course.
I think that we could encourage the Americans or all the users just to contact us and to try to do something in that kind of research. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. I see a question about the title of our library's director popular book from 2008. It is translated to English and it's called, I will have to read it, not to, in Serbian, it's Tesla Portrait među maskama, but in English, Tesla, a portrait with masks. I'm not sure if we can find the link to share, but we can also, I can write it. I will write it in the comments so you can.
I guess my general question would be, how do you go about becoming a member? And if you can become a member, if you're, you know, a scholar or researcher coming from outside of Serbia. And if there is anything you need, let's say, you know, a researcher is planning a trip, a research trip to work at the National Library of Serbia. What are some steps, I guess, to take before the trip?
Tamara, can you maybe, if you have more information about this question?
Yeah.
Oh, Tatiana is here. Okay, Tatiana will answer. Thank you.
What happened? I thought that Vlada could explain how someone could approach to the to the collection, to the manuscript collection, because they do have some foreign services are available for.
Sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's quite easy when you're in Belgrade, and it's not that easy when you're abroad. But we have constant questions about that because our collections manuscripts and early printed books are not available online, just as a presentation. So we have to have either, if you're physically here or you're visiting us online, we have to have data, you know, the questionnaire about who you are, what you intend to do with the material, and also for what kind of work do you want to perform. So this is the first start, of course, when you also come to the National Library. So we try to establish a connection between a physical presence and non-physical presence, you know, to have the same steps but it's the same, you know, you have to be a member of the library, and then with some recommendation, you come to us if we don't know you, and we already know a large number of our users that are in 80%, you know, Slavic scientists that we know very well. So the first thing is just to write an email to us, and we'll send you the steps. Okay.
Okay, maybe Tatiana could answer the question about. I'm not sure if Tatiana, she raised her hand, and I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself. Oh, you can.
Yeah, I did unmute. Hello to everyone. My name is Tatiana Timotijević, and I'm the head of Department of Scientific Information. I just wanted to say that there are no any specific rules for foreign researchers or members. Everyone who came in Serbia, he can become a member of the library. Just with their password, they become members, and then they can use all library resources under the same conditions as the Serbian ones. Yeah, and we also have a different types of, let's say, membership for 1 day, for 10 days, for 3 days, for a month, for a year. So as long as you need the library, you can take that membership card for that time of period. Thank you.
Thank you.
There was a question about, just let me see, how did you manage to cover the fund after the library was bombed? It's a tragic story, of course, so our fund is not as it should be. According to the year the library was established. So it took a lot of hard work, and we still have empty spaces, you know, for the publications from before 1941. So we don't have the full fund, although we back then also had a legal depository, yes. But everything was destroyed, including the inventories. So for the manuscript library, you can imagine for the manuscript department for our collections what it meant. All of the originals, unique ones, were destroyed. So, but the rebuilding of the, let's say, manuscript collection began even in 1941 or 1942. The first books were presented to the National Library, and it is especially moving in our inventories from that time that there is a note about 2 manuscripts bought from southern Serbia, I think. One of the first ones for the National Library. They were bought from the money sent to National Library of Serbia from our prisoners, war prisoners in Germany. The war prisoners, the officers, of course, who gathered some money, I don't know how, and sent it to the National Library to rebuild its fund. It's really moving. So it was a hard job, impossible for some collections, and for the main fund, it's still there is great, how do you say, emptiness on the shelves. Not literally, of course.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, there was one more question that I saw. Do you feel that National Library of Serbia is properly funded in general? Well, that is a rhetorical question. I don't think that any national library thinks that it is funded as it should be with the amount of work that we are doing and with the all things that we need and etc., etc., etc. So my colleagues can say something about it if they think differently. And we have in comments, libraries never have enough funding, yes, not just national libraries, but libraries overall. And I think that that is something that we all agree.
All right, I don't think I see any other questions, and it's getting pretty late for you in Serbia. It's almost 6 in the evening. So it was probably a long and exhausting day for you. So we should probably let you go and take some rest. But we're very, very thankful once again for your time and for you joining us and sharing. And it's fascinating work that you're doing, and I would really like to come and see it in person one day, hopefully, and maybe we can find a project to work together. So I thank you, and I will be in touch with the recording. And I don't know if colleagues, you mind if I share your beautiful slides with those who registered and interested in attending. Would it be okay? Because I have your slides now. Would it be okay if I share them?
Yes, of course. For everyone who's interested, and they can also contact us for any more questions. So, we are here to answer everything we can, and we are hoping also that maybe we can start a project together so we can visit Belgrade. That'd be nice.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the invitation once again.
Yes, thank you, and have a good evening, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.